So when I play guitar here on the YouTubes, I generally get asked two questions, like all the time. Number one is this guitar good for high gain? Number two is, can I play AC/DC on that guitar? That's going to be more to do with your amp and your signal chain going into your amp. Humbuckers will help you. But today on Cryptic Mass Guitar, I'm going to try and help you out with question number one, and we'll put some, put this through some tests, and you'll be able to see that it is good for high gain. So I don't want to have this long and drawn out intro, because to be honest, it's long enough as it is right now. So I'm just going to tell you we have this divided into three different sections. Section 1 is 2 different sound samples with leads. Section 2 I like to call one riff, 12 different amp heads. It's excessive. Section 3 is one riff, 8 different cabinets, and the real 4x12 cabinets with a real microphone. So let's start off with section number 1, shall we? So we've got DADGAD in C with a lead, and E standard with a harmony section and a lead. Section number 2, let's get excessive. I always get asked, why didn't you play this amp? I wish you would have played that amp. I came here hoping you'd play that amp. You didn't play it. So I'm going to try and give you a little bit of coverage here. We're going to play one riff over and over 12 different times. whole thing's probably going to be about 3 minutes and 30 seconds with 12 different amp heads.
See, I told you, that was excessive.
Let's split the difference. So we're going to play one riff, a different riff, with 8 different cabinets with 8 different speakers in them. Or 8 different speaker types in them. Again, this is real 4x12 cabinets. Real speakers, real microphones. I'm an old dude, and IRs and I do not get along. I grew up playing loud, and that's part of how I play. I feel what I play from the, the noise from the amp and the guitar and everything. So it's a real microphone. It is not one of the usual suspects that you would see in a basement studio or a home studio. I'll tell you why. Dynamic microphones, so like the SM57, Audix i5, or the Sennheiser E609. Those are the usual suspects. You can throw an E906, 441, 421, RE201, SM7B, which I always have here next to me. You can throw those microphones in there as well. But dynamic microphones, they're great because there's a lot of rejection to them. But they generally have this weird synthetic low end with a little too much high end, and they're like all mid-focused. This is a mid-focused instrument, so that's perfect. And you know what? That synthetic low end that you get, toss it right out the window if you're playing in a full mix. So the kick drum and your bass drum, or your kick drum and your bass are going to just get rid of that, and you don't have to worry about it. But For me, I use Neumann TLM-107. I used to have an old channel while back where I tested like 37 different mics. I wanted to find the microphone that most accurately represented what I'm hearing from a 4x12 cabinet in the room, because Dynamics weren't generally doing that. Some of them would get close, but not really. Generally, what you hear about home studios and basement studios is you cannot use a condenser microphone to record guitar cabinets. Here's the reason why I use it, and here's the reason why most people don't. I play loud. With a condenser microphone, if you're playing at lower volumes, you have to drive that preamp gain on your preamp going into your audio interface. So at that point, the condenser microphone, which is sensitive, will pick up unwanted noise. Maybe a dog is barking next door. I can tell you, if I open the door in my separate treated room, you'll notice immediately if that door is open. So I keep it closed when I'm recording. I'm also using a treated room, so that helps with reflection. It's not completely void of reflection, because I find that a little boring. But there's 2 London 10 room kits in there, and I've got 3 bass traps in there. So, but that Neumann TLM-107, because I'm not playing with any bass or any drums any bass. I am playing with drums. That accurately represents what I'm hearing from the cabinets, so that especially helps when you're playing with 8 different cabinets. So here we go. Alright, so that's it for all of the different sound samples. Thankfully, I don't have to talk about the stupid microphone thing, because I just don't understand when some people are like, hey, you can't use a condenser. Hey, that'll pick up everything. No, the reason that it's picking up everything is because you're playing at bedroom levels, and I'm not, because I have a separate room and forgiving neighbors. But anyway, at this point in the video, I like to talk about 3 different questions, or try to answer 3 different questions that I would generally think I'm going to get. And usually, they're the same. It's great. So, question number 1, what pickups are in here? We've got Alnico 2. Alnico 2. We've got the Burstbucker 2 in the bridge, Burstbucker 1 in the neck. These are sort of flatter response, especially in comparison to the 60s Burstbuckers on the standard 60s. and they're dialed back. What I mean by dialed back is they're not hot pickups. So some people don't like that. Some people don't like that flatter response in pickups. They usually like to have maybe like increased mids or increased lows or highs, and they generally want hotter pickups for this type of thing, like high gain. But what that means to me, or what I found out over the years, is flatter response, maybe a little bit of sweeter top end, maybe a little bit more emphasis on the low end, but you don't have to go and adjust that on your amp. At that point, you're just dialing in your amp. If you're switching guitars around, when you go to something that has more emphasis on the high and the low, then you usually have to turn that down on your amp, right? Question number 2 is the neck. So we've got a 50s vintage carve here. That means it's a fatter neck than the slim taper that is on the standard 60s. So if you're an SG guy and you're going to buy a Les Paul, you probably want to get, you know, the 60s. Or if you've got just the SG standard that has the rounded profile, well, this is a little thicker than the rounded profile, but might be a little more suited to you. The going scientific theory, and I have to say this in every video, and it drives me nuts. A thicker neck, your hand is sort of, you know, resting at a like regular, this is normal, right? Having your hand like this. When it comes to a slim taper, thinner necks, you got to go like that, and it promotes hand fatigue. I've never ever experienced that, but leave it in the comments if you have yourself. But I kind of understand where it's coming from. I just don't think it's realistic. And the last one, tuners. The tuners here. These are the Gibson Vintage Deluxe Clouson style tuners. Now, because these aren't Grovers or Hipshot or whatever the, like, you know, current preferred tuner for newer guitar players is, these are not those, right? A lot of people think, for some reason, that because these are, you know, older looking tuners, they're like, whoa, man, guitars never stayed in tune back then. So if you get the older tuners, they're no good, which is nuts. These older tune perfectly fine. I prefer these over Grovers, but I can understand when people like Grovers. It's not like I can't understand when other people like other tuners or anything, but I do prefer Clouson style tuners. And I also prefer non-locking tuners because I'm absolutely crazy. But the big thing here is, unlike the custom shop reissues, these are modern sizing. So if you wanted to get locking tuners, you could spend a little extra money, get the Clouson Revolution locking tuners, which those were my favorite locking tuner. Same thing, they're just drop-in replacements. They are a little more of a premium price though. But you can get whatever one you want as long as they're not vintage sizing. The vintage sizing is smaller. If these were vintage size tuners, it means you'd have to ream out the holes. You don't have to do that. But what you would have to do if you wanted Grovers or something else, you'd have to take these out and then drill little pilot holes in the back of your headstop. That's where you would want to use the tape as a marker to make sure you don't drill through your headstock, because that sucks. But you can replace the tuners. It's not a big deal. And something you can do on your own. Thanks for watching.